beautiful because I came up with this idea, and I'm like, I love social media. We've got this budding social media program. One of my professors was a really influential person who studied Flickr tagging. So I was like, I really want to explore the idea of how people use tags on the internet. And they were like, okay, just as long as you pass all your classes, you can get a degree. So I did, and I ended up at Know Your Meme, where I basically really dug into subculture. And it was such a refreshing experience to have someone be like, okay, show us everything that happens in Sherlock fandom. I'm like, got it, give me 6 hours, I'm good. And while I was there, I've been on Tumblr since 2008, and it was my favorite thing forever. So I saw a job open, and I'm like, here's my resume, it's a .tumblr.com page. And they were very impressed. Now I'm there, and they figured out all these things that I love, and were like, hey, do you want to calculate fandoms? I was like, yes, I do. And they let me build a taxonomy that powers something called the Fandometrics. I don't know if anyone's seen it. It updates every Monday, and it's the top 20 movies, music, TV shows, celebrities, video games, and internet celebrities. So that is my passion, and I just really lucked out finding a job where they were like, hey, do the thing that you love.
Is that a consumer-facing thing?
Yeah, it's thefandometrics.tumblr.com. You can look at it on your mobile apps right now. Oh yeah, the gifts are beautiful. It's really nice gifts.
And you get some cool fandom rivalries going with it too.
Oh yeah.
The fandoms are like, oh, we weren't in the lead this week.
Yeah, so we launched in January, and My Chemical Romance has been on the music list like every week since January. They broke up, like. Yeah, dude.
So where are they now? Sort of thing?
No, they're just forever. The Black Parade never stops.
Peter?
Yeah, well, let's see. I went to college as an opera major, so I got a degree in opera, which sounds kind of cool, but it really actually killed the passion of music for me. So along the way, I started an a cappella group, which is totally fun. I basically majored in a cappella, but ended up getting just the voice performance degree. And along the way, I was like, at one point I was like, I'm gonna make my full-time living out of music. It's just gonna happen, I'm not gonna have a plan B, I'm gonna do it, which I ate a lot of ramen for a long time. I taught myself how to do recording engineering and a bunch of other stuff. I started recording a cappella groups around the nation. Ended up going on the sing-off with my a cappella group and being the soloist for 5 or 6 episodes. And that's the same show that Pentatonics came from. And that kind of spurred me to start releasing my own content on YouTubes. And then that kind of organically started happening. I started recording other groups a little less and more of my stuff. And then a little violinist by the name of Lindsay Sterling reached out to me randomly and was like, hey, I know I love Lindsay. Go Lindsay Sterling. And she asked me to work with her, and that was kind of game-changing for me. And I was able to go from like kind of a part-time artist to a full-time artist overnight. Along the way, Pitch Perfect, the book, is actually about my wife and the group that she started at the University of Oregon.
What?
Like the movie, like if you look in the book, it's like the first words of the book are actually my wife's name. So I think it's a very small niche of genre of music, and I just really believe in it with all my heart. I believe in the human voice. I think it's something that could really move people, both to tears and laughter and just about everything. And I just make music for a living, and it's a lot of fun. Oh, and, which is more important, I'm a huge advocate for people following their dreams, and I advise a lot of companies like YouTube and Patreon and Louder and Tubular, a lot of things that are like really creator-focused, created by creators for creators that don't just steal your soul and make you sign a contract until the end of time, like MCNs and labels, even though I signed them.
And I see you have a question. We're going to do a Q&A towards the end. So.
I just wanted to, what were the jobs you guys, like since you're discussing how you did this, what were the jobs you did before to give us hope?
I made pasta, I made fresh pasta with my hands.
I worked in retail. We both, yeah.
Yeah.
Simple.
And you worked at Know Your Meme? Was that your first job?
No, Hot Topic.
Oh, Hot Topic.
Oh, you lucked out.
I was sass on Hot Topic, but it was a really fun company to work for, and like you get to be geeky, and yeah, you still have to sell the Black Veil Brides merchandise. Awkward but like you get people who are really passionate, and retail is such a valuable skill because it teaches you how to talk to people.
That's true. Thomas?
Okay, the question was how did I, like where it came from? Or...
Yes.
All
So,
right.
maybe Earth. I don't know.
Yes. Well, that's alleged. Maybe. I don't know. But I did, basically I came from a huge, this is a surprise, big theatrical background. So I did a lot of stage performances. Yep, Florida Thespians. Yeah, born and raised. So it was, I was able to kind of like, I've always been kind of like a ham in front of the camera, just naturally.
I would not expect that.
I know,
Yeah.
a lot of people, that's a big surprise. So when Vine came around, it was just kind of like another outlet to be a ham. And the audience kind of grew from there, like out of nowhere. So I studied engineering, which is, the other side of my brain that was being used at the time. So I think Vine was just like that. Vine and theater was like that outlet that I needed, that creative outlet, to kind of, grow that side of the brain. And now that I've gotten more of a response universally from the acting side, that if you guys have a passion for theater, please follow that. The arts is very important. It's like any bit of the arts. It's very important. I think you can always emphasize that.
Yeah, and so, talking about following your dreams, and Peter, you started mentioning this a little bit about different platforms that support creators. Let's get a little bit technical here. If you are an artist and you are wanting to try to do this, if not full-time, at least in a way that you can support yourself, what are some things that you've learned, or even mistakes that you've made over the years?
I don't think any artist, any musician should ever sign a label deal. I know that from experience, but I didn't say that.
I'll edit it.
I think from the get-go, you need to think of yourself as a brand. You need to think that you're creating kind of like your little digital media company. I think that in doing so, it lets you not only think about that. I mean, we all start as like the do-it-yourselfer, right? But you have to start from somewhere where you're like, I'm going to create content for free and just work my butt off. So in doing so, I think you have to think about so many different things. How can I cut corners financially? How can I support my content? I think there's a lot of companies out there that allow you to do things like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and my personal favorite, Patreon, which is like consistent crowdfunding. It's like basically for people who make content consistently. And then as a musician, I think it's quintessential to have covers be part of your workflow because it allows you to be found on multiple platforms because people always search for the newest stuff, and in doing so you have to make sure that you get the right licenses, and so there's lots of companies out there that do that well. My favorite company is called Louder, super easy. I mean, there's just a lot of companies now that are being created by creators for creators that allow us to do what you want for a living, and even if you don't know how to, for instance, mix your own music or even record your own music, there's a thing called the internet, and you can type in how to X and you will find things that are very helpful. If there's anybody that's actually interested in doing musician stuff, I've actually created a FAQ on my website that basically is all these free utilities and websites that I actually use that are part of my workflow. So it's just peterhollens.com/FAQ. It's just a bunch of free source websites that are basically what I use to create my work. Do you want me to speak about anything else?
Oh, Amanda, you were jotting some notes down. Did you have something?
Oh yeah, tag your stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't stress that enough. Like, tag it on Tumblr specifically. Up to 20 tags get indexed into search. 20 tags. Just
Wait, I've been told 5.
I told it was 5.
Well, 5 get indexed into the /tagged/ pages. But if you want to get, the search pages are full text too, but the top 20 get indexed into search. So tag your stuff, and don't be afraid to ask for money. Like, I'm not saying like go up and be like, I would like $5 million. But I was asked to do a talk, and they were like, well, how much do you want to be paid? And I was like, here's a big number, just throwing it out there. And they were like, okay, we'll give you the whole thing. And like, just you are the expert of what you are the expert of, and don't be afraid to acknowledge, like, I know this is the thing that I do, and I am worth it. Don't be afraid to ask.
I wish I had better advice, but I mean, I just kind of like, I posted what made me laugh, and luckily it's obviously stuff that you also have to like review, and you want to make sure that if you like really look into it and see if this was taken from any perspective, is it going to upset somebody? Like, you don't use humor at somebody else's expense. And so I try to really emphasize, like, post what makes you laugh because you like doing it and enjoy it, but also really because it's the internet and you don't know, and you could be posting something very innocently and it could be taken the wrong way, and you want to make sure that anything is taken the right way. Also, if we're talking from a Vine perspective, really kind of look at certain successful Vines and see how, like, there's a flow to it. I think I like looking at Vine as it's like a 3-panel comic, and like there's a beginning, there's a middle, and an end. That's where 6 seconds is. At least maybe it's just in my head, like that's just there's a flow to it. There's a cycle, and if it flows correctly and you feel like there's that beginning, middle, and an end, that's a good start for if you want to keep going with creating content. Don't be afraid to showcase who you are, what you love, what you're a geek of. It's good. It makes for better inspiration for future videos.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I mean, the problematic side of it is definitely something, when you're creating stuff on the internet, it is so hard to know, because, there's a joke that can be good between friends when you know each other and you understand where you're coming from, but when it goes out to everyone, especially if you accidentally go viral, and then it's so many more people saw it beyond your own community. But also, yeah, watching other people for whatever you want to do, really, like, don't imitate other people, but watch them for inspiration and to get the flow, like Thomas said. Like, when I make my best YouTube videos, you can tell that that's a week that I just binged on a ton of videos of other people, because I was like on my game more. And you talked about tagging for Tumblr. On YouTube, it's also incredible to use their tags. You can use, I don't even know the character limit for tags, but there are tons of tags, and especially if you can make them, think about what you made, like what kind of content you made, and think about the type of person who would enjoy that. So not just like, what is this about, but like, maybe what's a video that is similar that someone else might be watching, but if they saw yours come up in the suggested tags, would they enjoy yours as well? And another just sort of like hack, I guess, is if you're using a title or tags that are very different from each other, like ones that people wouldn't usually search, you actually come up higher in search results. So like, if you made something and related popular culture to a political issue, and so you were like,
Hi, Nikki Loki.
Justin Bieber and voting, people probably don't search those two together too often, and so if you had a video that were about both those things and it was in your metadata, then you'll show up higher in the searches. And also, you were talking about thinking of how it will relate to other people and be spreadable among other people, but we've also been talking, especially Amanda and Peter, about subcultures and niches. I think everyone in here is involved in some sort of niche fandom, and I think it's really cool to try to be able to combine those things, to find that niche that you love, or that one community that you have. But if you're wanting to try to spread beyond that, to try to be a little bit more successful with your content, if that's your goal, thinking about how it can still be relatable and spreadable beyond that. Like, don't use too many inside jokes if you don't want to. This is strictly if you're wanting to, spread beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're encouraging people to start from scratch, I think the best workflow is to do something that you're most passionate about and that niche that you're most passionate about. But I would almost kind of slightly different from you. I would say initially, I would find the people that are most successful in that niche and I would copy them almost verbatim. And then look back at yourself, see the way that people reacted to it, how you react to it, and then adjust according to who you are as a person. Because I think a lot of people get scared to just start. And this is the same classic thing, but it's like people just will fail automatically because they won't begin. And so I think it's almost a really great template to use to help beginners to just literally copy the content of their favorite people. I mean, like, the same workflow. Say you got a really late start, but your favorite Viner was X. Dude, George McFly, really nice guy. I would copy George's thing exactly and then be like, did I like that? What would I do different? And then, people just won't start.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually great advice. One thing that Hank Green one time said about online video.
Who's that?
Hank Green's little brother. He does things sometimes. Yeah. But one thing he said was that one of the greatest things about online video is when you watch something and you think two things simultaneously. You think, oh my God, that was amazing. But also, I could do that. Maybe you could, it would be a challenge and you'd have to work at it, but you could do it. And so I think that's really good advice. It's just, if you don't know where to start, yeah. And was also, if any of you wanted to add to that.
Oh, just if you want to be an artist, start with fan art. Fan art is the
That's
best.
great, yeah.
If you want to be a writer, start with fan fiction. And explore these worlds that are already set up and learn about how to work with a character and then take it to what you want. If you want to explore the world of Harry Potter first before you go into your own fantasy world, do it. That's how you learn. Just have fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree, it's good.
Yeah. And in addition to sort of, looking at other people's work, I think also collaborating with people, not necessarily a straight up, collab, but Peter was saying if you don't know how to do something, definitely internet. That is your first thing. I think a lot of people get really scared by video editing or maybe, audio editing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people also don't know that collaboration is on so many different levels, right?
Yes.
You collaborate with your video team, you could collaborate with an audio engineer. I mean, it's when you're starting, you excel at X and this person excels at Y, and as long as you can be very transparent and communicative about that relationship, you can help each other. And I think that's quintessential to start making content, because we have to do it. So many of us have to start and use so little money, right? So then in the end, then our commodity is our time and our energy. And I think if you can put yourself into a community of people who are like-minded but excel at different facets of that creation, I think that's so vital to starting. And then obviously a collab is a collab, people know what a collab is. But there's so many different ways to collab. And even across verticals, say you start doing it and getting a little bit of traction, even if you can't necessarily work with this person who creates cooking videos, but maybe at the end of their piece of content, maybe not in a 6-second Vine, probably, but you guys can push to each other. And I think it's all about building communities and fostering it, because the thing that just drives me effing bonkers is that people are so focused on competition, and truly, I believe where we're heading, the best way to view it is as collaborators and peers, and that terminology really needs to shift, because especially in the music world, people always view each other as competition, right? But that's total crap. I mean, I view all of my peers as such, and in doing so, I think it lifts up the entire ecosystem. I think that's truly where John and Hank really, I think that's one of the reasons why YouTube is doing so well, because John and Hank's ethos and that of VidCon, which has been really fostering the community at YouTube that actually has heart and soul before the money ruins everything. I think that's one of the things that needs to live on in all these different platforms to really excel. And that's why you have a job kicking ass at what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And I think if we focus on that kind of a raising the tide focus, I think it's going to be so much more helpful to start and to grow as you're building a community. I've said that word so many times.
No, it's so true though, and it's exactly what you're talking about. Is thinking of collaborating, you're thinking as peers, not as competition, but as part of the community and part of the community that you can work together. So think of those peers as oh well, that person's better at music, I need that, or I need a graphic designer, and we can trade things like that. And think if for those of you who are familiar with John and Hank, when they need last minute things, they just tweet out who can design this graphic today, or different things like that. And then sometimes those random people that they find one day on Twitter to do one project with them end up working for them in a couple of years, because it's just all part of the community.
Yeah. In my position, for my Vine, I don't look at numbers. I hate looking at any numbers with my Vine. I post it and I leave it. I have no idea how well any of my videos do. And it's so freeing to not be like, where are you on the list of popular things for the day? Because you're posting what you enjoy doing. You had a good time with your friends putting together that video, and you get responses from the people who enjoyed it. And in that sense, a wonderful community is born because, you know, I'll make a Vine that features Steven Universe in it, and yeah, maybe not everybody will get it, but for the people who do, it makes them really happy, and it made me happy including it because I'm just such a huge fan. And that's that. It's a community of people creating content that they like to create, and the people who enjoy it will enjoy it.
Absolutely.
No competition.
One of the best parts of my job is doing the radar on Tumblr, and I love like finding fan art from a really niche community and then searching the Tumblr radar tag and seeing like, oh my god, Tumblr knows what Homestuck is. Well, there is one Homestuck on Tumblr stuff. But it's just nice to like be able to lift people up, and I know food photographers who have gotten jobs from having their stuff in the radar, and like artists who get to work together and collab. 9 Squares, I think, is the blog, but it's a blog of all these GIF makers, and they just collaborate to make one big photo set. And the GIFs don't always match up, but they always have the same theme, and it's really great. And it gives people who are making these things a space to interact with each other and to make something beautiful together. And lifting up the community is just so important. Like, bring your friends with you to the top. Start from the bottom and never you.
Yeah.
So as we're talking, kind of, throwing out tips and stuff here, I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about what kind of planning goes behind what you're doing. I know for Peter, that's a lot. Probably a lot of different stages. But specifically if there are maybe some behind the scenes things that people generally don't realize goes into making your content.
So much. So much.
Pull back the veil of Vine.
It's yeah. You think I have a couple friends in here who have done a lot of Vines with me, and they will tell you some Vines will take up the whole afternoon. Because they will, like maybe it's just because I go ridiculous with some of my Vines, but they involve sometimes costumes. You have to go to the right location. If you're singing, you have to pick out the right song and where it's going to happen and what it's going to fit, and you also have to worry about where the noise is. If it's bad weather, there's a lot of things involved. Also, you have to, if there are multiple people, you have to coordinate schedules. And for me, I post daily, so I'll come up with the Vine idea around 12 to 1 in the afternoon. So then I have to coordinate with people. They're back there. Some of my good friends are back there. They do like amazing. She's recording. They're amazing in the sense that they just will, like, at the drop of a hat, if I'll be like, I have an idea, they'll be like, sure, let's do it. What's the idea? I'll do it. I have work, or if I'm free, I can do it. And it's a blessing. And it takes a long time sometimes because I'm a perfectionist when it comes to it. So some Vines can take like a good 3 hours to do a day.
It's funny
How
because
many seconds is that?
You're an engineer, come on.
36 times 3, I don't know, 3600 times 3.
It's funny because sometimes you'll see like Vines and people comment like, this should win an Oscar, but it sounds like you have a full shoot day. Actually, like
it's like you'll have the idea and be like, how does that come to fruition by 5 o'clock today? But yeah, it's tough.
My workflow. Well, so most of my music has like between 80 and 200 tracks, and I have to, record each one of those with only one voice. So, you have all the normal conceptualizing the content, whether that's a medley or a mashup or how you're going to market it or who you're going to collaborate with. And then the arrangement, which takes a long time because it's like, 6 to 12 parts. And then the recording process, and I usually lose my voice at least once a song because I'm trying to do way too much because I sing everything, all the parts, and it's ridiculous. But I mean, it's probably somewhere between, 75 to 200 hours of video. So then that's why it takes me about 2 weeks. And I usually now, especially when I'm trying to collaborate with, like, Hank and I have something that we're working on, and that's going to take forever to finalize his schedule, my schedule, and then I'm doing something with the shade tars, and that's going to take forever. Anyway, so I'm working on like 15 different things at once. Then you're always setting, rough cuts for people, making sure it works for the ranges, blah, blah, blah. So basically, conceptualize, arrangement, recording, edit the recording, mix the recording, master the recording, and then conceptualize the video, record the video, edit the video, color the video, upload the video, do all the marketing, talk to writers, try to get blogs, push it for like a day. I mean, and then just keep doing it because you're like, oh crap, if I don't start now, I'm not going to be done in 2 weeks, and I have, So yeah, I mean, but it's freaking awesome. It's fun, but you can't stop. When are we going to stop? We can't stop.
We don't make a lot of original content, but we do the year in review. That's my team, and last year we started in the end of September. Just like planning out what we were going to do, what posts we were going to do. We had like 150 and had to cut it down. And this year we've already started talking about year in review. And when October hits, it's just like 12-hour days. We eat a lot of lasagna. It's like year in review food. We just sit and order fancy lasagna and look at posts. And it's very intense, but it's the best time of the year. We did the top skeleton war post.
You were the one.
We just looked at like hundreds of photos of skeletons for like 2 days straight. It was magic.
Job's amazing.
So one thing I wanted to ask was,